This is the World Today Weekend on CKNW News Talk 980. Once again, here's Sean Leslie.
As Canadian rocker Neil Young, of course, a Southern man, way back in the 1970s, taking a shot at the Deep South in the United States for its civil rights record, and of course infuriating people across the American South. And Leonard Skinner responded with Sweet Home Alabama, taking shots directly at Neil Young. Neil Young not afraid to mix it up when he's on his soapbox, when he figures he's got an issue, and that's what he figures he has right now with the oil sands. It was last weekend when the first of many news conferences with Neil Young occurred, and he talked about what he calls the devastation of the oil sands development in Alberta, likened it to Hiroshima, which infuriated many here in Canada, when you're talking about, of course, the bombing, an atomic bombing in Hiroshima that killed half the citizens of that town, and a lot of people feeling that that was a little bit of overkill to compare the tar sands to that. Later in the week, he was comparing it to the surface of the moon, and Neil Young going around holding concerts, raising money for First Nations in Alberta who are fighting for rights around the land that's being developed. Tim Moen is a filmmaker and blogger based in Fort McMurray who actually worked with Neil Young and American actress Daryl Hannah when they visited the oil sands area, and he joins us now. Tim, hi, how are you?
Hi there. I'm fantastic. Good to be with you.
Thanks for coming on, Tim. I really appreciate it. Tell our listeners, give us some context here. How was it that you came to be working with Neil Young?
Yeah, well, I have some experience in the area doing aerial filming, and Neil wanted some shots from a helicopter of his new technology, his Link Volt that he had built. It's a hybrid Lincoln Continental, pretty cool car, and I love the idea. You know, here he is promoting green technology. I thought that was a fantastic thing to promote, and it just so happened at the time in the community there was some local entrepreneurs promoting some of their green initiatives, so I thought what a great opportunity. So they contacted me through their production company, and I was happy to help them out with their film. And that's about my experience of him. I found him to be a friendly fellow and not altogether that receptive to some of the ideas that I had for connecting his project to what's going on in the community.
What were some of your ideas, Tim?
Well, there was this eco carnival in town, sustainable, and it runs off used cooking oil. I thought there was an opportunity to do some great shots highlighting this green technology. They had a solar powered stage there, and I thought it would have been fantastic if he would have been willing to get up on stage and perform on this solar powered green stage. And I just thought it would have been an interesting thing. I kind of like the idea of showing where we're at in the world in terms of, some of the less pleasant sides of industry that keeps us all energized, and where we could be, with these new kinds of technologies and initiatives coming out. So, I thought some of these ideas might mesh well with his project. But I found out later that wasn't really necessarily his on the agenda. It wasn't necessarily so much about promoting his project and his green energy as it was maybe smearing the oil sands a bit.
So what did you think when you heard his comments last week? Oh, by the way, when was this that you were actually working with him doing the filming?
This was back in August, this last summer.
August of last summer. Okay, so this is clearly he's up there. He's tooling around, as you say, in his converted car that runs on this biofuel essentially. But he's up there and he's getting some kind of I guess he was meeting a lot of First Nations leaders up there at the time.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
So he comes out last week, has the big news conference, going to raise money for First Nations, and he says Stephen Harper is ignoring science for the almighty dollar, and this place looks like Hiroshima. Tim, what did you make of that?
Yeah, well, I wrote a blog pointing out some of the hypocrisies in his rhetoric back in September. I try to be discreet with my clients and respect them. But I kind of felt like he maybe broke the agreement we had where, I was sold the idea of promoting green technology, and then it turns out, I was, in fact, maybe smearing my community and the industry that supports it. So I wanted to make sure that I got the real story out. And he back in September was in Washington, D.C. talking about how, Fort McMurray looks like Hiroshima and we're killing people and that sort of thing. Now, I think, where he got himself into a bit of trouble is that he used the word Fort McMurray, and I'm not sure that that's what he meant, and I don't think that people here might have been so offended, per se, if he had just said that there's pockets of the oil sands that look like Hiroshima, that maybe look like a bomb goes off. I think it's a little bit maybe insensitive to people in Hiroshima that actually suffered and had, kind of this horrific thing and died. But besides that, I kind of got what he was saying. But to me, it was just kind of rank hypocrisy, because here's a guy who's generating a huge carbon footprint, and he's kind of criticizing us for doing the same thing. And it was more the tone of it. I'm actually working with a couple of environmental activists right now, shooting some film in the area. And my experience with these guys is far different. They're here for a dialogue to connect with the community, to really understand it and understand this kind of cycle of production and consumption that we're all caught in. They're from LA like Neil is, and they have no problem pointing out that, if there's any fingers to be pointed at anyone, we're going to point them at ourselves first, because we're in the smog capital of the world. And, we aren't shutting off our cars anytime soon. So these guys are just trying to understand the whole issue of climate change and environmentalism, set in the backdrop of comparing and contrasting the consumers in Los Angeles with the producers up here in Fort McMurray. And so that's the kind of dialogue we're looking for up here is people that are asking us questions, that want to work with us, because at the end of the day, we all have the same concerns, and I share the same concerns as Neil. I'm concerned about the environment. I'm concerned about First Nations rights, and so we can work together. But the problem is that Neil is creating a dialogue. He's demonizing people and industry and putting us on the defensive when he should be making us his friend, because we have the same goals and we can work together to solve a lot of these problems.
Well, did it seem to you, and of course, as you point out in your blog, and folks, you can read it, my guest is Tim Moen, it's Moen is his last name, you can read him on the Huffington Post. You pointed out it wasn't just Neil Young, he brought along actress Daryl Hannah as well, and she's very well known for her environmental views and her political views. Did it seem to you, Tim, like they basically kind of had their minds made up about the issue before they even visited the region?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they definitely, they have a dogmatic stance, right? They don't come here with an open mind. They're not curious. They're looking for particular shots that reinforce their narrative. So for sure, there was a lot of, there's no getting around it. They're biased, and I don't mind people having a bias. We all have our bias, but I prefer people that put their bias out in the open and say, this is my belief, and here's the evidence that would change my mind. Now let's talk. And that certainly wasn't the case with Daryl and Neil. Although they were lovely people, I have to say, on a personal level to talk to, but they just certainly, they're not helping their own cause out very well with this type of hyperbolic rhetoric.
Tim Moen is my guest, Fort McMurray filmmaker and blogger who worked with Neil Young and Daryl Hannah last summer on a filming project. Do you think that Neil Young is off base with his criticism, or do you stand with what he says? Give us a call, 604-280-9898. Hiroshima, really? Star 9898 on your cell phone. Long distance toll free, 1-877-399-9898. You can also comment on our Facebook page, CKNW, or shoot me a note via Twitter at Sean Leslie 980. And we'll be back on CKNW News Talk 980.
This is the World Today Weekend on CKNW News Talk 980. Once again, here's Sean Leslie.
All right, welcome back. That's still one of my favorite Neil Young songs right there. With Crazy Horse. Of course, have you ever seen the live version of that? You got to check it out. We're talking about Neil Young because of the controversial comments he's made, and he is touring on tour right now, raising money for First Nations in Alberta who are fighting the oil sands development. Of course, he compared it to Hiroshima, to the surface of the moon, says Stephen Harper is ignoring science in favor of the almighty dollar. My guest is Tim Moen, a Fort McMurray filmmaker and blogger who worked with Neil Young and American actress Daryl Hannah last summer in Alberta, getting some footage for a documentary they're making. And Tim doesn't think that Mr. Young has given the Fort McMurray area a fair shake in his assessment of what's going on. Your thoughts at 604-280-9898, star 9898 on your cell phone. We have Suzanne in North Vancouver. Suzanne, hi.
Well, hello there.
Hi.
I've been following this story, and I think it was Wednesday or Thursday I Googled Neil Young, and a story came up about his famous electric car, how he'd broken down in the Sierra Nevadas, whatever. But apparently this car, which burns biofuel and then converts it to electricity, it's $1 million prototype.
Really?
So this is where the disconnect is between these celebrities and the average working Joe. I have 5 family members that work in Fort Mac. I was just up there for a wedding last year. I was up there the first time in 1978 when it did look like Hiroshima.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's being converted. We should actually be proud of that because there's more environmental scientists working for all the big oil companies up there than anywhere else in the world.
Suzanne, great call, and Tim, your perspective on that. I mean, what's it like in Fort McMurray these days?
Yeah, I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful place to live. I mean, we are people living in the middle of a pristine wilderness, and we're doing our best to preserve that wilderness and reclaim it. You know, the bits that look ugly right now are being reclaimed, and she's absolutely right. You know, there's technology and processes and information and best practices coming out of this region that are going to be able to be used worldwide to better the environment. And, Neil Young is actually modeling the way in a sense, because here's a guy that has burnt a lot of energy, used his wealth to create this new technology. And new technology isn't cheap. It is expensive, and it is finicky at first. But eventually it gets better. And so this kind of describes us very nicely. I mean, we are using a lot of energy. We are creating a lot of wealth that is being spread out among First Nations people and people that uproot their lives from all over the world and across Canada and come here to, provide energy to the world. And, we're doing it in a responsible manner, and we're creating new and greener technologies because of it. And so I think, Neil is modeling the way, and we don't disagree with the way he's doing it. In fact, that's what we're doing in our community.
And as the caller pointed out, I don't know if she's right about the $1 million cost of Neil Young's car. I think, Tim, we all love to reduce our reliance on oil. I had a few callers on the show on a related topic yesterday, pointing that out. We all depend on oil, but we also recognize, A, that it is finite. Eventually it'll run out. And B, it probably has some impacts on the climate, burning all of this stuff. And we'd all love to have alternatives to it, but not all of us can afford $1 million for a prototype car.
Absolutely not. No, we can't. And if you're a poor family, you're not going to be able to produce that prototype car. And if you're a poor nation and region, you're more concerned about surviving than you are worried about necessarily creating clean energy. So the places that are creating clean energy and new technology are the places that have some wealth, that are using their resources in a responsible way to generate wealth and create newer and cleaner technologies. And I think that's one of the benefits that we have in Canada. I mean, the very fact that Neil could come here, that these environmentalists that I'm working with can come here and have a constructive dialogue if they want, is that we're not Saudi Arabia, and we're not Nigeria, and we're not some of these other countries that are producing conflict, and some might even call it blood oil. We are very concerned about the same things, and we're open to dialogue, if you're open to dialogue back. But if you come here with an agenda, if you come here to put us down and demonize us, well, we're going to push back.
Richard in Victoria on the open lines. Richard, hi.
I guess they'll be rejigging Sweet Home Alabama up there to say a Fort Mac man don't need Neil Young around anymore. But there was an interesting piece yesterday in the Globe and Mail by Gary Mason that Neil goes over the top and bringing up Hiroshima, however it's pronounced, and he can be guilty of a lot of bombast, but there are some statistical figures that would show that he's not that far off in what he's saying, that it is a big source of greenhouse emissions for Canada, and don't just dismiss this guy out of hand.
Yeah.
Myself, I still don't trust Neil, because he's kind of frittered away a career by throwing out albums where he, didn't take care to sing in tune enough, and didn't work enough with Crosby, Stills, and Nash to fine tune his creations. But as I say,
That's another issue. That's another issue entirely. Richard, thanks for that. Let's get one more call on Malcolm in Vancouver. Malcolm, hi. You're going to get the last word. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Really enjoy your show.
Thanks.
I feel internal combustion engine fossil fuels have to go the same way as the steam engine went with coal. Put it to rest.
Well, we got to get the technology first, Malcolm. I do appreciate your call, though. And Tim Moen, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And we'll try to chat again, because I think you're doing good work up there. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate a chance to dialogue with you.
Tim Moen, Fort McMurray filmmaker and blogger. Again, you can read his comments on the Huffington Post. It's Moen, M-O-E-N. All right, we'll break for the 4:30 news. When we come back, we'll take you back to the vigil in Surrey last night for Julie Pascal, the Surrey mother who was murdered outside the Newton Arena. And the mayor speaking there last night, a lot of people turning out. We'll also hopefully get an update on the Seahawks game from Stu Walters, who's prowling around the streets of Seattle. And it is, by the way, now, as I look, yes, it is 9-0, soon to be 10-0 for San Francisco. Oh, the dreaded Niners. Kaepernick, they had the lead right now. Stick around. You're listening to CKNW News Talk 980.